according to this news report that I'm about to show you guys, it doesn't look to me like there's going to be an end in sight when it comes to this particular topic.
No buses from the southern border expected to arrive here in Chicago today. Second day in a row without migrants arriving by bus. And it comes just days after Governor Pritzker reached out directly to Texas Governor Greg Abbott. In a letter, Pritzker urged Governor Abbott to pause drop-offs this past weekend due to the winter storm. Abbott replied that Texas will continue to send migrants until the president secures the border. On that topic, tomorrow Mayor Brandon Johnson was set to hold a meeting with other local mayors to discuss the migrant situation. That meeting's been postponed to Wednesday, yes, due to weather. The mayors are set to discuss strategies to deal with the influx of new arrivals, including new bus ordinances, which many suburbs have adopted in recent weeks.
Accustomed to this cold, Contreras says. I've never seen the snow before. It's beautiful, but it's too excessive, the cold you have here.
The Texas governor basically said we're not going to stop, and the Chicago mayor basically says, you know, look, we got to kind of delay things. And meanwhile, the governor of Illinois, he knows that it's just delaying the inevitable. And of course, this situation is obviously going to get a lot worse, especially given the fact that the weather is extremely bad. I mean, it is extremely cold. As I have said before, this right here is not only a humanitarian crisis at the border, but this is also a humanitarian crisis at the, let's just say, in the blue cities. And of course, we all have smug leftists to thank for this. But then again, at the same time, the only thing they care about is their toilets being cleaned. The only thing they care about is somebody being able to pick the vegetables out of the ground. Of course, these people don't eat meat, so therefore they obviously need people to pick vegetables. And who the hell do they have in mind to do this? Well, I'm pretty sure you guys have already guessed that, but also, as I've said before too, there's also an agenda here too. So make sure you guys stick around for the full video as we go through this once again. Now guys, we'll talk about that clip a little bit later on because it kind of sets the scene here. Now, we've been talking about the migrant situation for a very long time, especially when it comes to the cities of Chicago and New York. And don't worry, we're going to be talking about both of these again, these cities. However, I think it's time that we have a conversation from the migrants' perspective, and we need to go ahead and ask them the question. Go ahead and ask the question, is the juice really and truly worth the squeeze? Now, you probably think to yourself, we get to America, we get to the United States, we get better opportunities, we get to make more money. And of course, I've spoken about this in a previous video saying that really what's going on is that a lot of the money that's going to be made is just going to be sent back to their relatives in their native nations, not exactly helping the U.S. economy out. I also told you guys a story in that previous video. It was actually the video before the previous video I did on this topic, because the last one was actually on the Texas National Guard. But I talked about how it was that working construction and working other jobs, you find out that there are people who come here just to simply work and then go back to their native land. Now, I would be okay with that initially if said people actually put the money into the U.S. economy, in case there was like a massive labor shortage or whatnot, but never anything more than a temporary job, nothing any more than maybe a couple of months. Or if you ever work construction, maybe like a shutdown or something like that, or a certain job that's being built, nothing long term. But of course, you got to go back. That right there is basically my rule. And of course, I still very much believe that there needs to be a border wall and overall border security. I also believe that we can't vet everybody. But still at the same time, since last summer, since we've been talking about this, we've seen people who live in the area that are black, other Hispanics, of course, poor people who live in those communities who are like working like one or two jobs, part-time jobs, because the economy is so bad. And of course, you've got rampant inflation. They try to tell you the economy is good, but they don't seem to tell you is that most of the jobs that are being added are part-time jobs, where you're only getting about 10 to 20 hours a week. So your money is not really going anywhere. But the thing is this right here. While these jobs are obviously, let's just say, being given to others, you got to ask yourself a question. Do you want to be that person someday, that some purple-haired girl who, by the way, is the daughter of a British rock star who also at the exact same time left Los Angeles to go back to England because the crime was too bad and because, let's just say, it was getting a little bit more diverse than what he wanted? Do you really and truly want to be commented about like this right here? And granted, I understand it's an old clip, but it's still very, very relative in exactly how it is that these elitists really and truly feel about you.
A lot of Latinos here in this country that do agree that the immigration problem is a problem and it does need to be addressed and it does need to be fixed.
That's interesting.
But making those comments, those racist comments, do not help.
And if you kick every Latino out of this country, then who is going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump?
Oh, that's no.
In the sense that, you know what I mean? Like, when I'm saying
there's more jobs to be
in LA, they always,
but
they don't.
Latinos are not only the only people
I didn't mean
doing
it like that. Come on. No, I would never mean it.
Oh, Kelly Osbourne, she got censored for that clip. She apologized. She had to go through the whole struggle session and everything. However, there's one person that's not going to be going through any form of canceling session or any form of a struggling session, and that right there is New York Representative Gerald Nadler, who said this right here the other day.
Farm that our vegetables would rot in the ground if they weren't being picked by many immigrants, many illegal immigrants. The fact is that the birth rate in this country is way below replacement level, which means our population is going to start shrinking. And the ratio of people on Social Security and Medicare is going to increase relative to the number of people.
I really and truly am tired of hearing people complain about slavery. I really and truly am tired of hearing people complain about it, especially given how it was back in the 1860s. And the people who are complaining about this the most are typically the race hustlers on television. We went through all this slavery, went through all this Jim Crow, stuff like that. I understand YouTube may want to yellow dollar sign the video here, but as you guys can see, they're not exactly using black people for that anymore. They're using the migrants, which kind of goes back to what I was saying to the migrants. I mean, are you sure you want to be a part of that? And also one more thing too, are you sure you want to be known as the people who actually replaced another group? I mean, I'm just asking. Obviously, this right here was the end game all along. The elitists, they need you to go in there and clean the toilet. They need you to go out there and pick the fruit. They need you to go out there and pick the vegetables. They also need you out there to replace another group of people. So yes, jealousy, of course, will intensify at some point in time as more and more benefits are actually handed out. I'm just throwing it out there because obviously some people don't want to open their eyes and see exactly what's going on here. As I mentioned before, as I asked, is the juice worth the squeeze? Let's take a look at this first news report.
People gathering of metropolitan mayors tomorrow canceled due to the sub-zero cold. The harsh cold also forcing the city to temporarily shut down the migrant intake center in the South Loop.
Let's go to Julian Cruz. He's in the loop now with more. Julian?
Well, Ben and Lourdes, migrants from the intake center landing strip brought here to the Harold Washington Library, as well as other temporary shelters, the OEMC tells us, all to escape the bone-chilling cold. The cold is too much, says Gabriel Diaz, the 38-year-old new arrival from Venezuela, and dozens of others temporarily moved to the lower level of the Harold Washington Library. Because the city's windswept landing strip at Polk and Des Plaines presenting a dangerous environment for asylum seekers, temporarily forcing the suspension of the combination city and state intake center. Venezuelan asylum seeker Andres Contreras, a block down from the library, stunned to experience the bitter cold.
Pues la verdad no estoy acostumbrado a este frío, pues.
The truth is that I'm not accustomed to this cold, Contreras says. I've never seen the snow before. It's beautiful, but it's too excessive, the cold you have here. The harsh weather not stopping Chicago's mayor looking for better ways to deal with the migrant crisis.
Looking for direction, but also wanting to find ways in which we can better coordinate as an entire region how to deal with this migrant crisis, which is obviously an international crisis that requires federal intervention.
And this severe weather, for now at least, having one welcome effect. Ben and Lourdes, we haven't seen a single migrant bus dropping off migrants in the last 48 hours. At the Harold Washington Library, Julian Cruz, WGN News.
If you want to complain about the cold, I don't know. I mean, I really truly don't know what to tell you, man. I'm going to say this the first of probably 3 times in this video, maybe 4 or 5. There are veterans who fought for this nation who are currently homeless. There are veterans who fought for this nation, who gave everything they have combat action ribbon, have medals, and quite frankly, seen so much crap, and they can't get a single, let's just say they can't even crack 50% when it comes to the VA pay scale. They can't even crack that. They can't even get that in benefits. But yet here we are handing out more and more and more. And I mean more benefits, more things are being handed out, more things are being done for people who quite frankly are not from here and have no desire to actually contribute to this nation. But yet we're just going to completely bypass the men and women who fought for this nation in favor of
Evicted from city shelters and wait for placement.
CBS 2's Ali Bauman shows us how many migrants are trying to make it through the night.
At 4 p.m. Monday, 28-year-old Borchevi, a migrant from the Congo, waits outside the East Village Processing Center for asylum seekers.
Very cold.
He was evicted from his homeless shelter after 30 days, per the mayor's new edict. Here, he received a number, his spot in line to be relocated to a new shelter.
Which I don't know because I have anywhere to go.
City Hall says right now single adults wait about 5 days for placement. Steps away at Tompkins Square Park, asylum seekers wrapped in layers of clothes try to pass the time. This man tells us he will likely spend the night on the streets.
¿Por qué en la calle?
Porque en mi caso no tengo móvil, teléfono y me dan direcciones y como no conozco la ciudad.
I don't have a phone and I don't know the city, he tells us in Spanish. I don't know where to go. On a code blue night like this, when the temperature is below freezing, the city is required to provide a place to sleep to anyone who is homeless and seeking shelter. At 7 p.m., we found dozens of asylum seekers lined up along 3rd Avenue in the Bronx. Men and women in limbo outside the city's waiting room for migrants who have yet to be relocated to a new shelter. And what's inside is just a step above the streets. There are no beds in this waiting room. Migrants sleep on floors and chairs until they're told to leave at 6 a.m. Jennifer is a 46-year-old asthmatic migrant from Venezuela. She calls the waiting room terrible and says she cannot bathe and the food is frozen. Jennifer describes to us how she spent the past 5 nights sleeping on the floor in the Bronx. In the morning, she goes down to the East Village to check if it's her turn in line. Then she comes back here to wait for the doors to open at 8 p.m. A spokesman for City Hall told us if Code Blue is still in effect by morning, asylum seekers will be allowed to stay in the waiting room past 6 a.m. In the Claremont section of the Bronx, Ali Bauman, CBS 2 News.
But it gets a lot worse. It gets a lot worse. Now, guys, you saw that clip right there was from New York. You obviously saw the situation that, quite frankly, is getting out of control. And I'll tell you guys more towards the end of the video why it is that they're allowing the migrants to do this. Of course, Mexico is too. I discussed this in the previous video, the one about the Texas National Guard. The current Mexican president, he wants Joe Biden to sign some form of legislation here, basically legalizing 10 million, which is completely unrealistic, and I explained why that was the case. But there's another reason why it is they don't want to do this. But the thing is this right here. Go back to the very beginning of the video when I showed you Gerald Nadler, and go back to when I showed you Kelly Osbourne. She asked, who is going to clean your toilet, Donald Trump? Who's going to pick this? Who is going to do that? Who's going to replace this right here? Oh, we got Social Security to worry about. Well, pay attention to the very, very end of this news clip, because once again, you're going to see that this time in the city of Chicago, like before, you've got people complaining about the cold. You've got people complaining about being moved in and out of shelters, being moved around, not being able to bathe and stuff. But of course, there is this one guy at the very, very end who really and truly completely killed any argument that liberals have going forward. It's absolutely ironic, and it's really in the worst possible way that it could have happened.
Chicago is working to help keep people safe.
CBS 2's Mugo Digwe joins us now with some of the ways that they're warming things up for people who really need it.
We are staying inside this morning for this live shot to avoid the painful cold out there. And the city has the same idea, making sure shelter is available for those who need to escape the cold. The city has now activated its emergency operation plan for extreme cold, and it will last through Wednesday. That means it's opening 7 warming shelters. 2 of them will stay open 24/7, including the location in Garfield Park. The Harold Washington Library will also open its lower level to serve as a 24/7 warming center for anyone in need. We're told migrants waiting for shelter at the landing zone will be transported to the site. Here's an example, though, of just how cold it is out there. We caught up with some Tesla owners at a charging station. Several charging stalls were not working, likely because of the cold. The few that were working had trouble keeping up with the number of cars that needed charging.
I've been here for over 5 hours at this point, and I'm still have not got to charge my car. And our batteries are so cold that's taking longer to charge now. So a charge that should take 45 minutes is taking 2 hours for the one charge.
So you're upset that your electric vehicle that has to have a charge is not charging and it's taking 2 to 3 hours because of the cold, dude? Or we told you that this was eventually going to be a problem, man. But of course, you didn't want to listen. Same guy who is going green by buying an electric vehicle is now finding out that it takes multiple hours when it's freezing cold outside to charge his vehicle. Liberal logic 101, folks. Just figure I'd toss that in there. Fact of the matter is, these people are not just being used to replace. They're also using these people to kind of create a bit of a slave labor force. That's really and truly what they're doing. Migrants who, of course, are going to make a lot less money than those who would actually work here. Now, somebody's probably going to say, look, we kind of need these people to do this, but still at the same time, that right there would just be another form of what you guys complain about the most, slavery. You keep bringing up saying slavery was a very, very bad thing, but what are you doing with these migrants? I mean, come on, please. Okay, number one, we do have an issue with homeless. I'm going to go ahead and say that right there. I think that when I hear people complain, and I can think of a few people right off the bat who live in blue areas that I know personally who have told me that we have a homeless problem in the country, and yet they blame capitalism for this issue, yet they live in very, very blue areas. Maybe you should look at the leaders that you are electing. It's typically the people who are running those areas, but still at the same time, though, we also have homeless vets, which I'm gonna rant about here in a second, and I think that those guys obviously need the benefits that, quite frankly, they should have got when they signed the contract to serve this nation. I mean, you're probably going to hear me say this 2 or 3 times in the video, but if you've got a combat action ribbon, you should probably automatically get that 100% VA disability rating and still be able to work a job too. By the way, I'm going to go ahead and say this right here now, and like I said, you'll hear me hear it again. When a lot of people go to file for that benefit, they automatically think they're not going to be able to work a job for the rest of their life or anything. That's actually a bunch of crap. You can still work one, okay? Just throwing it out there. But these people are complaining about no phones. They're complaining about getting booted out of these areas. That right there is what's going on here. They're complaining about that stuff there. They're complaining about really the type of stuff. And one of those ladies said she was asthmatic, and she's complaining about not being able to bathe. If you trekked across a country like, say, Mexico, that's a pretty long distance. You probably weren't able to do it then either. I mean, it's almost like the people coming over were expecting all kinds of potential givens. I hate to tell you guys this, but it seems to me that you left the socialist crap hole for a situation that may have been worse than a socialist crap hole. I mean, I'm almost at the point in time to say that the dregs of the very, very big blue cities are way worse than all the socialist crap holes that these people originally lived to. Also, the fact that you have a declining birth rate in one community, so obviously they need to replace it with another. It's been, like I've been saying for a while, they're basically bringing these people in to replace another group. And that right there to me, I think, is damn near satanic. If you really and truly think about it, it's not just, say, people who are black. It's also people who are gay in certain communities. I got to kind of keep it clean here, but, I got to bring up this chart once again on a certain group, and I got to bring up this little problem that's being had. Also, the fact that once you go through that little surgery, you can't reproduce, you can't have any children. So it seems to me like maybe they're just cutting you off right there. You're being replaced. So it's not just people of a certain color that are being replaced. It's also people of a certain lifestyle that are also being replaced too. But like I said before, this video right here is designed to talk about things from the migrant perspective. You see, here's the real truth of the entire situation, guys. As Razorfist detailed in his Why the Wall is Needed and why it is that Mexico actually needs the wall more than the United States, and this right here is the real point of the situation, is that if a wall was built, if there was actual honest-to-God border patrol, then that means that Mexico would have to actually fix their problems. Central America would also have to fix their problems as well. As a matter of fact, there was this country, I want to say it was El Salvador, who actually got their crime situation under control. We may do a video on that at a later date, but then again, though, Sean Fitzgerald did multiple videos on that, so what good would a video coming from me about that? But still, at the same time, at least you know that there's one country trying to fix the problems of their nation. The truth be told is that a lot of these people come from South America. They've got to go through Central America and those nations there. Guatemala, El Salvador, Costa Rica, Nicaragua. They got to go through those nations too. So when they go through those nations, then obviously they're not being stopped or halted there. Fact of the matter is that there was actually a border wall, then that means that Mexico would have to actually fix all their problems. Cartels, the poverty, everything. They'd have to actually fix it. And of course, there was a report that came out a long time ago that natives that were living in the area were upset with the white Californians that were going down there to party and stay there for extended periods of time. I'll probably do a project on that at a later date, but still at the same time, after a while, the situation becomes a great big old giant mess. I mean, look, you knew it was cold when you got here. You knew that it was very, very possible that you were going to be moved around. You knew that you were possibly going to be living in a spot that, quite frankly, was worse than the place that you were living. So why did you guys decide to come on up here? I mean, the red flags were there. People were suffering. People were getting sick. Sickness is obviously spreading all over the place. It's going to get a lot worse in the coming year, especially in New York, when the sanitation department has been cut. I mean, can you imagine the trash pileup? Can you imagine all the germs? Could you imagine all the dirt, the grime, the fact that people can't bathe, the fact that people who can bathe aren't exactly using hot water, which, by the way, also helps to clean bacteria, also helps kill bacteria. I mean, think about the disease that could come. And then now you've got this report now that's coming out that obviously people came into Dulles Airport sick. I mean, I'm not saying that another pandemic is coming, but I can tell you right now, there's going to be a lot of sick people in the next year, especially with the way things are going. But then again, though, I may have said this in a previous video, they love to say that it was the white Europeans that brought disease there. Maybe Biden is allowing the disease to spread from here. Maybe it's revenge for something that we did in our past. Maybe that right there is what it is. But you guys know me, I'm not that sentimental. And I'm also, at the same exact time, I don't exactly believe in karma. I believe that things happen. You know, you get what it is that you vote for. You get what it is that you pay for. The best way to red pill a leftist or a red pill a liberal is to simply give them what it is that they want. And of course, they wanted this, and now they have a humanitarian crisis on their hands. This entire problem is on the basic lackadaisical thinking of people who think that they can go out there and buy an electric vehicle and ignore the complete elements of the world. I mean, liberal logic 101, folks. To those Google gods, to the people who work at YouTube, in no way, shape, or form am I calling for anything to happen in Mexico or anything like that. I'm just simply making a suggestion. If you stayed right where you were, chances are that you would get these opportunities to vote in your elections. I understand you may not have fully free elections, but of course, at some point in time, you would be able to get reforms done. You would be able to get things done in your own nation, so therefore you wouldn't be up here complaining about the cold. You could actually enjoy the nation of your origin. I mean, after a while, you got to ask yourself a question. Are Americans really and truly, like Americans, really and truly the people you want to be around? I mean, think about it really quick. It's good old-fashioned, country folk. It's good old-fashioned rural folk. We live together. We live with people who are Hispanics and we get along. But, of course, when you go to these very, very blue cities, you run into people who just don't care. Their life is kind of on autopilot. And, of course, the only thing they care about is the person whose name they don't know, whose language they can't speak, to just simply clean their toilet. The leftist smug elitists, the people who buy the electric cars, who then turn right back around and complain about the fact that the weather kept them from charging their vehicle for a few hours. Do you really and truly want to be around those people? Or do you want to engage in Mexican nationalism? Do you want to engage in your nation's culture and history? I say what you should do is reform your own land, reform your own nation, fix your own country. And, of course, if we can get a border wall or border security put up here, then obviously everybody will be much, much happier. I'm not saying that you got to go start a revolution or anything. Maybe a political one, a peaceful protest and stuff. Maybe you should do that there. Maybe that right there is what you should do instead of coming up here and freezing out in the cold on behalf of a bunch of elitist, smug liberals. Just a thought. Guys, tell me what you think in the comment section. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. Tell me if you think this entire situation is completely screwed up. Just tell me what you think. I really and truly want to hear what you guys have got to say. And if you disagree, if you got something to say to me, please do it. I really and truly want to hear what you got to say. Also, something else too, before I close this video, once again, just please make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe, and as I said before, please hit the notifications bell, and please leave a comment. I really and truly want to get you guys' thoughts on this, and I'll see you guys later.